Welcome to the Here and Now Show. I am your host, Vonda Ray. Thank you for tuning in to the Here and Now Show. I am your host, Vonda Ray, as I said before. And I would like to welcome you all for tuning into my show. And if you already know, and if you don't know, or if you tuned into my show before, you know I'm coming from the Midwest, where we come in, show in, and show out. Gotta love your city. Hello, somebody. The Here and Now show is a show where I took real life events and turned them into a positive. It is also a space where I created where you can feel free to leave a question or a comment. And as I firmly believe that all voices matter. So if you want to leave a comment and question or just sit and listen, I like that too. And if you tune into my show before, you know that I play my little share of jazz music. I don't know, it kind of sets the room for me. I like jazz music. I feel like it sets the stage for perfection, just to kind of give you an idea of just kind of relax and let go and just let it happen. I'm sorry, that is a commercial. So, with that being said, I would like to play my little jazz music for about a few seconds and then we can get into the groove. Yes. Isn't that nice? Yes, it is. Welcome back. Welcome back. Today we are talking about relationships. But hold on. Don't anybody get nervous. I'm just not talking about the romantic ones. I'm talking friendship. I'm talking workship, family, the ones that we're proud of, and the ones we probably should have let go three flags ago. Hello, somebody. Because honestly, everybody wants a relationship, but nobody talks about what it really actually means. And trust me, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a coach. I'm just somebody that has emotions and feelings and been through life changing events and wanted to share them with people alike. So bear with me. But as I say, a lot of people talk about it, but they really actually don't know what does it really mean? We all say, like myself, I say, I want love, I want support, communication, and loyalty. But like myself, I tend to ignore the text messages or avoid hard conversations or even hope that a vibe fixes everything. And honestly, that's not a relationship. You know, Let me explain what I mean when I say a relationship with expectations. A relationship, a situationship with expectation is when you're doing relationship level work, but you actually do not have a relationship, right? Does that sound familiar? Meaning your loyalty, your emotions that you invested, you checking in, your support, and you're just waiting there holding space, just waiting, but you're still waiting and you have no clarity. There's no consistency, and there's no commitment. And just from my point of view, that's not a good idea. And I say that because without commitment, you're always going to leave room for disappointment. Now you're expecting your partner behavior, expecting partner behavior for someone who never even asked to be in the relationship. You know what I mean? And to me, that's like ordering a full meal and you're only getting the appetizers, but you're still paying the whole bill because you're only getting partial of that. In situationships, in a situationship, the other person gets the benefits, and you're saying like, what? They get your time, they get your loyalty, they get your emotion and your energy. Meanwhile, you're confused and you're getting mixed signals and a bowl full of we're gonna see, or maybe. And see, the problem isn't having expectations. The problem is having expectations with no structure. Does that make sense? Like, you got somebody, you got all these expectations, but there's no structure to the expectation. So then it's like, what? So so from my point of view, and I always say from my point of view because I'm not perfect, and these are just my thoughts. From my point of view, I think that love is. I think that that's not love. I think that's hope. I think that's the line of hope that things will work. You know what I mean? And in a real relationship that comes and that's supposed to be great for you and going in great directions, a relationship that has clear intentions, right? Your intentions are clear. Not only are your intentions are clear, but your maturity, y'all effort for others' feelings. You understand what I'm saying? A situationship keeps you stuck in the potential of what you thought could be instead of what's the reality of what it really is. You know what I'm saying? And one reason that I think it's a bad idea is because it's like while you're waiting for your turn while you're waiting for it to turn into something real, life is still moving and you deserve clarity, not confusion, right? You deserve constant, constant. You deserve being I don't know what's wrong with my words right now. And y'all have to excuse me. I'm not perfect. But you deserve for someone to be consistent and not be convenient to them. Consistent versus being convenient. You don't want to be convenient to somebody that they can call you 3, 4 in the morning and it's a convenience for them, but you want you would like to have, and I think that everyone should have if you're in that relationship type of situation in a relationship. You want someone that is constantly doing something and is consistent, right? A real relationship isn't just about being connected. It's being intentional. Intentionally. It's intentional. Everything you're doing is intentional. It's about showing how you show up, how we listen and how we grow and how we treat people when we're tired or triggered or when there's a disagreement. And unfortunately, I am casting at home where I have a dog and she's going to bark for about 5 minutes, but I'm not perfect. So I'm going to do my best to keep on going through it, keep on talking and doing the motions. And as I said before, whenever you have a trigger or a disagreement. So let me say this: if a relationship works and you're in silence, shrinking, or explaining yourself every 5 minutes, that is not a connection. That is customer service. That is not a connection at all. And my dog is going on and on. But if you guys bear with me, we're going to let the dog bark and I'm going to continue. Now, don't get me wrong. Relationships are not perfect. They can be messy. They require effort. They require patience, and sometimes requires you to take a few deep breaths before you respond. I've been in relationships where I had to take deep breaths before I respond, because my mouth can be real big, right? But I'm still in training. I'm still in training in my mindset on how not to do that. I've learned real quick that to ruin a relationship real fast is when you reply out of emotions. You might not you might not make that same choice. You might not make a good choice because you're running with your emotions. So your choices will be very emotions choices versus being choices that you wouldn't make if you was not emotionally distracted. You would have a clear motive on how you wanted to handle a situation. You know, there are choices, and then there's a brain because your brain reacts in anger and hate and giving you, that inner toddler, that steering wheel and saying take the wheel because now you're angry and that inner child in you is demanding you to do things. So you might overreact to something so small when you're going within your emotions. And here's the thing: emotions are not messages. They're not. They're not judges either. They just tell you that something is wrong, but they don't tell you the best way to respond. So you might burn a lot of bridges that you haven't even touched. Or it's like getting a text from someone that makes your chest pound and your jaws tense up because your emotional brain saying, all right, I'm about to reply and I'm about to say all this shit, get it out. But if you do that, chances are your response may sound just like you're auditioning for a recent a drama show. You know, you're screaming because once your brain says something, then the heart says it, and then you respond, and then you cannot speak clearly. You won't be confident, and and this is really just be moving too fast because you're not actually replying from your true emotions. You're moving from emotions. I'm sorry if I got a little sidetracked. I normally do my podcast at home. I mean, I'm sorry, at the library, but I wanted to do it at home because it's a little more peaceful. So if you guys hear background, don't fault me for that. Just keep going in the motions with me because hey, it happens. It's called starting somewhere, right? And I'm starting somewhere. So, from my point of view, replying with your emotions is basically a sign of regret, and nobody knows what that is. So, sometimes you start yelling, and you're so angry. So, this is what I did, you know, before I tell you the story of what I didn't do when I went into my emotions versus going in this situation clear minded. Um, so, the next time that I started to feel, anxious or angry or trying to work in my emotions, I I stopped and I breathed and I waited and I thought first because thinking before you do can really help you throughout a lot of situations. And as I did that, it did make me wiser. It made me stronger, and I did come off sassy, but not as sassy. Right when I calm down and actually evaluate the whole situation. So let me tell a story to my favorite people in the world, which is you guys, about how it's not a good idea to respond with your emotions. You know, you ever had one of those days where you know that you realize that the entire disaster was technically your fault? Right. That's me. Right. So picture this. I'm meeting up with my ex, which already that tells you that I am making poor life decisions, right? Nobody meets up with their ex because the life is great. No, you meet up with your ex because you're either bored or maybe emotionally unstable or you just like chaos. I think that it might have been all of that for me at that time. Um, I was confident, I was all confident walking in, like, yeah, I'm totally over him. I don't give a damn. You know, this is like, yeah, I'm all over the place. That's what I'm thinking because I think I'm walking in here with all this confidence and I'm totally over this person. Meanwhile, my brain is already preparing a dramatic speech. Do you hear me? Like, I'm starting to say things like, I am going to be in an Oscar award here. Like, I'm really breaking down this movie that I'm pretending to be in that I'm going to say in front of my ex. So, needless to say, the whole thing, of course, that was the whole reason for not going back to your ex because it wasn't healthier for me and wasn't the best choice. But anyways, moving past, so my emotions started to rise. I already went and I met my ex. Bad idea. I don't know why I did that. Voices started getting louder. We're arguing. I'm getting sarcastic and it's getting dramatic. It's getting loud. And I'm thinking I'm winning the argument too. Because I'm just being all type of sassies. And then my ex goes, well, did you book the room for the reservation? And I'm like, uh, I got silent. That type of silence that when the atmosphere kind of leans over there, the universe, and tells you you just done the stupidest shit ever. So now at this point, I'm not ready to take accountability. I completely forgot to book the hotel. It's my fault, right? And that sounds like a small little mistake that a normal person could make and be like, oh, my bad, sorry, laugh it off and maybe go home. Not me. No, instead of me accepting my my responsibilities like an adult, I did. And I worked out in my emotions. I got emotionally, and I did what emotionally intelligent people don't do. Don't do this, okay? I double down, right? Started blaming everything and everybody else. I told him maybe the system was down, maybe the internet glitched, or maybe the hotel lost it, or maybe the invisible person that I talked to online really did not make the reservation and it was their fault. I didn't take accountability. I just kept getting madder and madder and madder, right? Yeah, so apparently the one thing that wasn't responsible was the guy that did not book the hotel, which um it never happened, right? So my ex is looking at me like, just a minute, just admit it. You know that you forgot to book the hotel. We can get rid of this argument just a minute. And of course, me being me, extra. I used to be really extra. Like I said, I'm still growing and developing. So don't judge me. But things got a little heated, got a little loud and things, and I'm still being emotional and sarcastic. And at this time, I'm noticing people are standing around, right? Because everybody likes, I guess, to see an argument, right? I guess. So people are standing around. I'm noticing people taking pictures and videotaping, and I'm feeling like a real dumbass by that. But now I'm still in the heat of the moment of my emotions, and a window gets broken. His car. What the hell? So that's needs to say I hit the window, it breaks, right? Of course, someone called the police that was being too nosy, whatever. They called the cops, the police come. I'm standing there knowing this is all my fault, right? Hell, I don't care. It's my fault. So what? I'm standing there like, the police comes and asks me the most worst questions. It was humiliating if you ask me the dumbest questions ever, which guess is just questions they have to ask. It's like, so, what happened? I have to tell the whole story. So I'm just like, technically, the root of the situation was I forgot to link the reservation. And needless to say, I went to jail, you know, um, for property damage. Yeah, he pressed charges, right? I guess because he's my ex. He's like, I'm gonna put you in jail, looking ass. And so, of course, eventually, I'm sitting in jail, and for property damage, And I guess it was kind of embarrassing to me at that moment because the police officer was like, "Let me get this straight. You forgot to make a reservation, and you got upset, and you broke his window." Hmm. My looking ass was like, "Well, now that you said it like that, it's not really that bad." And he said, "Sounds a little dramatic. You dramatic shit." That's what I was thinking. I just didn't say that. So needless to say, I ended up sitting in jail for a very short time. It gave me time to reflect on like this argument could have been avoided. The one thing I learned in the 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes I was in jail, first 2 minutes, I learned my lesson. The first one was jail wasn't for me. Mm-mm. No, no, get somebody else to do it. Jail is not for your girl. And second of all, none of this had to happen if I technically would have just made sure it said confirm on the reservation. Now, actually, it would have been no broken windows. It would have been no police. All I had to do was do that little click, and instead of instead of that, it turned into a full blown argument, a meltdown, and education. I did get while I was in jail. I got an education of like a tour of what the local jail looked like. Not for me. Okay, that tour was kind of scary. Okay, but the moral of the story is before you argue with your ex, check your reservations. No, just kidding. Because sometimes the real problem isn't the relationship. It's that you forget to press to confirm the booking. No, I'm just kidding. Um, just don't move yourself out of actions. Before you before you do that, sometimes you need to think about, hey, if I move this way, this is going to happen, and that won't be good. And we don't want that to happen because moving out of emotions can get you in places you don't want to go. And also in relationships, I know you guys hear that background, and it's okay. It is okay. So if you guys are like, oh, she seems a little off, I'm not. I am. I lied. See, see what I just did? Took accountability. But unfortunately, I've given you guys, I think, a great story of, why you should not move in your emotions in any situation. Um, Before you go ahead and first, it's a good idea to, maybe take a breath, analyze the situation, see if it's even worth confronting or worth doing anything of that nature. I think from here on out, my listeners, I will be casting from the library. I kind of like being at home because I like the comfort of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. And in the next few weeks, just to let you guys know, we'll be having a few guests on here. Now, a lot of people are shy to actually get on the internet and speak, and I know it's hard to get up there and see yourself being live, and you don't know who's watching. And whoever's watching, thank you for watching. I mean, you haven't said your name or anything. Thumbs up. Excuse me if I'm a little off a little bit. Excuse the background. Do not judge me because you would be judging that same matter in another life. Has nothing to do with me. Thank you. So with that being said, this is a short show today. Again, don't judge me. I'm doing the best that I can, but I want you to remember that before I go, I'm going to leave you with this life lesson. Learning things the hard way never is good when you react out of your emotions. One time I got in my emotions with my arguments over with my ex. The window ended up broken. Police got called, and I ended up in jail. Now the embarrassing part was, seeing myself in jail on some bullshit charges, paying fines and everything because one, I didn't take accountability, and two, I moved emotions. You moving emotions is never good. So before you argue with your ex or before you argue with anybody, before you react in emotions, before someone's window ends up broken on the ground, before you start looking like you're in some damn action movie where people smash windows. Because I know in action movies it looks cool where they smashing windows and busting out cars and catching on fire and they get to walk away all cool and shit, no consequences. That's not real. There's definitely um, consequences. So just check the emails before you go meet up with your ex. Meeting up with your ex is probably not a good idea because they're ex for a reason. Let's remember that. And so, I remember that. I'm just trying to see if I forgot anything, you guys, before I get up off of here. And I don't think I have. So, with that being said, I want to thank everybody who tuned in for this short 23 minutes. I normally run my stream for at least 30, but today's a different, different time. So, with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Catch me again next Tuesday with the following Thursday. And like and subscribe if this was something you understand or could relate to or just enjoy watching. So thank you. And I want you guys to, let's see, it's 12 o'clock, a little bit after 12 in my time. Maybe some of you guys can go have some lunch or whatever's tasty for the ocean. I'll see you later. Thank you for tuning in.